Egypt was the richest land on earth. Rome wanted it back, and the man who could save it had just been fired. The new Caliph had been in power for less than 2 years. The Roman emperor saw weakness. He sent a fleet, according to historical accounts, numbering in the hundreds of warships, straight for the Muslim world's most valuable prize. What happened next would shape Egypt's identity for the next 1,000 years. When Uthman ibn Affan became the third Caliph of Islam in 644 CE, the empire he inherited was vast, stretched, and watching. Its enemies were watching closer. The Roman and Persian empires had suffered devastating losses under Umar ibn al-Khattab. Territory after territory had fallen. But now, Umar was gone. And in the courts of Constantinople, the calculation shifted. A new caliph meant perhaps a weaker one. Egypt was not just a province. It was the engine of the ancient world. For over 6 centuries, its grain and gold had flowed directly into the Roman imperial treasury. When Umar's general Amr ibn al-As conquered Egypt in 641 CE, that flow stopped. It redirected south and east toward Medina. For Rome, this was not merely a territorial law. It was an economic wound that never fully closed. So when Uthman became Caliph, the Roman emperor made a decision. According to historical accounts, a large naval fleet. Muslim sources place the number at around 300 warships, though historians note this figure may be approximate, was assembled and dispatched toward Alexandria. The mission was clear: retake Egypt, restore the revenue stream, and prove that the Islamic Caliphate was only ever as strong as one man, Umar, and that man was dead. The fleet moved fast, and inside Egypt, something dangerous was already brewing. Act 2. The governor who taxed too hard. Before Rome arrived, Uthman had already changed Egypt's leadership. Amr ibn al-As, the general who had conquered Egypt, the man whose name the Roman military reportedly still feared, had been relieved of his governorship. The reason was economic. Under Amr, Egypt's tax revenue reaching Medina was, in Uthman's view, far too low for a region of such enormous wealth. Uthman replaced him with Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarh, a man of Uthman's own tribe, Banu Umayyah, and by some accounts, his foster brother, a man with a sharp administrative mind and very little military experience. Abdullah ibn Sa'd transformed Egypt's tax structure almost immediately. What had trickled to Medina now poured. Revenue doubled. Then, according to some accounts, it tripled. The numbers impressed the Caliph in Medina. inside Egypt, the cost was being paid by ordinary people. Farmers, traders, Coptic communities who had lived through Roman rule, then welcomed Muslim administration, and now found themselves crushed beneath a new kind of weight. The historical record indicates that this taxation created genuine popular resentment. And resentment, left without outlet, eventually finds a door. Alexandria was Egypt's greatest city. Its population was enormous, its harbor strategic, its people restless. And they were done. According to the historical sources, the people of Alexandria, exhausted and embittered, made a decision that would have been unthinkable just years earlier. They sent a secret message to the Roman emperor. The contents, as recorded in Muslim historical tradition, were essentially a military invitation. Attack now, and we will rise against the Muslims from within. They did not do this because they loved Rome. They did it because they had forgotten what Rome actually was. The Roman fleet arrived. The people of Alexandria rose. Muslim soldiers stationed in the city were overwhelmed, outnumbered, caught between an external naval force and an internal rebellion simultaneously. Those who survived fled toward the Muslim administration capital deeper in Egypt, carrying the news that Alexandria had fallen. Governor Abdullah ibn Sa'd received the report. He was competent, organized, effective at governance. But this was a war. And the soldiers around him knew the difference between a governor and a general. They wrote to Medina.
They needed Amr ibn al-As. The man who could save Egypt was the same man Uthman had fired for not taxing it hard enough. Uthman made the decision quickly. Amr ibn al-As was reinstated, not as governor, but as military commander, and dispatched with a force that Muslim sources estimate at around 15,000 soldiers, though historians note varying figures across different accounts. When he entered Egypt, the effect on Muslim morale was immediate and visible. Soldiers who had been demoralized, uncertain, outmatched, they steadied. But Amr did something unexpected when he arrived at the Muslim capital. He ordered them to wait. He did not march on Alexandria. He did not engage the Roman forces. He told his soldiers, in terms the historical record supports as consistent with his strategic reputation, that the people of Egypt had not rebelled out of love for Rome. They had rebelled out of pain. And Rome, given time and proximity, would remind them exactly why they had welcomed Muslim administration in the first place. What followed confirmed his calculation. The Roman forces, now in control of Alexandria, behaved as occupying armies of that era typically behaved. Historical accounts describe looting, violence against civilians, destruction of property. The very population that had opened the city gates now watched their homes ransacked by the force they had invited in. The shift was not gradual. It was sudden, and it was total.
When Amr finally gave the order to advance, he was not commanding a reluctant army fighting against the current. He was commanding a force that had the population of Egypt behind it. The battle that followed, known in historical sources as the Battle of the Masts Prelude, though the primary land engagement here is associated with the recapture of Alexandria, was fierce. Muslim forces, now reinforced by Egyptian civilians who had seen enough of Rome's return, drove into the Roman positions. The naval advantage Rome had carried across the Mediterranean meant nothing on land, surrounded by people who would switch sides again. Alexandria was retaken. The Roman fleet withdrew. According to historical consensus, this withdrawal was not temporary. Roman forces never successfully re-established control over Egypt again. What Amr ibn al-As secured in 645 CE held. It held through dynasties, through centuries, through the collapse of the Caliphate itself. Egypt
remained Muslim, and it still is. After the victory, Amr ibn al-As did something the historical sources document clearly. He ordered the return of property taken from Egyptian civilians during the Roman occupation. The practical politics of it were obvious. He needed the population's trust. But the act itself, regardless of motive, mattered to people who had been looted twice in quick succession. Then, Uthman made his next move. He offered Amr a compromise: remain as military commander, while Abdullah ibn Sa'd retained the governorship. Amr's recorded response, preserved across multiple historical sources, was characteristically sharp. He compared it to holding a cow by the horns while someone else took the milk. He declined. He returned to Medina. Abdullah ibn Sa'd resumed full control of Egypt. And the tension between military reputation and administrative authority, between Amr's standing and Uthman's appointments, did not disappear. It simply waited. Egypt was saved not by the largest army, but by a general who understood people better than he understood warfare. Amr ibn al-As read the room of an entire civilization, and won without fighting first. If this story hit different than you expected, you already know what to do.